Welcome to our panel today at Performance Days. The topic of our panel today is From Measurement to Action. As the focus topic says of this Performance Days, it all goes around climate action. And I have the pleasure to have three guests here with me. We have Muriel Weber from EXPED. She's a sustainability manager and looking for all the nice products we use in this industry, in the outdoor industry. We have Moritz Nachtschatt from POW, Protect Our Winters. He's representing the consumer view on the topic of climate action. And we have Stefan Heiner from ClimatePartner. He's working for an organization looking into the data side of this question. So thank you very much for our panel, and thanks for all the people listening to our speech. Climate action and how can we bring things into action? This is what we would like to talk about the next 45 minutes. And for you to have an idea on who's with me here in detail, I would like to start to ask Stefan. Stefan, you're working for an organization who is looking into data, into measurements. Can you explain us a bit what you're doing and what your role is in your organization? And at the end, what is your passion for climate action?
So first, thank you for being here. My name is Stefan Heiner. I'm working at ClimatePartner. What we are doing, we are a full service provider helping our customers to take action, to take the first steps in climate action. My special role is I'm in the account management, so I'm directly working with our customers on their carbon footprint, on their reduction measures, and on their offset strategy. And I'm in the textile industry, so most of my clients are customers from the textile industry or from other consumer industries. And what is my passion about this topic, why I'm working at ClimatePartner? I think for me it's very interesting to work on the most urgent topic of humankind. So I think everyone knows that we don't have very much time to do something. And therefore, it's very motivating to work every day with our clients, our customers on that topic, and to see that they are taking more and more action, starting with the measurement and then walking towards action. Yeah.
Thank you, Stefan. The next question is to Muriel. Muriel is working for a brand, and they have started a roadmap to climate action. So can you tell us a bit more about your role, your company, and as well the question of what is your passion? What is your link to climate action?
Okay, also from my side, thank you for inviting me or inviting our brand to this panel. We are happy to be here. My name is Muriel. I'm a product manager and sustainability manager at EXPED. At EXPED, we don't do garments, but we do textile equipment for the outdoor sports. Our main sector is mattresses, and then we also have sleeping bags, tents, backpacks, equipment which are mainly made of textiles. And we've started our journey towards climate neutrality 2 years ago, and we started to measure the footprint of our most important category of the mattresses, which are air inflatable, so not normal mattresses, but the camping mattresses. And we continue for the other categories throughout 2024, and we claim to have all categories measured and offset by 2024. At the same time, we're also looking, of course, into the reduction, but I think we'll go into this topic after. My personal passion is really about the outdoors. It's about the sports outdoors, and from that passion, we just see this extremely urgent situation with our outdoors being at stake and with humanity in the outdoors being at stake, and it's just the most important thing to tackle. So that's why we're in, and we're doing our best.
Thanks, Muriel. And Moritz. Moritz is working for an NGO, for an organization, with the consumer mind in the focus. And if you can explain our audience a bit on what you're doing. You're one of these participants here who usually are not on this kind of fair. And that's why I'm really happy that you took the chance to bring your view into this discussion.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for inviting us. My name is Moritz. I'm the General Manager of Protect Our Winters Austria. So Protect Our Winters is a worldwide NGO. We've been founded in 2007 by Jeremy Jones, a professional snowboarder. And in Austria, we exist since 2014. So we are rather young. But yeah, what we do is we started out in trying to raise awareness mainly. And in the last years, we've shifted, since awareness basically already is in all our minds, we shifted to more policy work on a national level, but also on an international level. And what I do at Protect Our Winters Austria is, I basically do everything. We're still on the uprise, so my job as general manager is just to keep an overview of everything, and especially on strategy. And yeah, my passion is just the outdoors. I think we need to act now if we want to give our kids, our grandkids, the same chances we had. And the time is basically up. It's now or never.
Thanks, Moritz. Muriel, you also mentioned about the phrase climate neutrality. Probably Stefan can explain us briefly what does climate neutral mean? How can we define that? Is there something like an official definition for it? How do you define it? How can people explain it to their peers?
So when you are as a company, or when is a product climate neutral, at the first steps you have to measure the all emissions that are related to a company or to a product or an event or service or whatever you want to account. To receive a result that says, for example, for a product related to this product, you have 5 kilograms of CO2, just an example. And then you technically have two ways to get it carbon neutral. The first way, of course, is you are able to reduce all emissions related to this product. But at the moment, that's technically not possible with almost no product. There only is the second option, and therefore you can offset your emissions in an official international certified carbon offset project. What is a carbon offset project? This generates carbon credits, and these carbon credits certify that these amount of CO2 is saved. So, and in this example, for example, when you have a product with 5 kilograms of CO2 and you offset or you support a carbon offset project, it's certified that 5 kilograms of CO2 is saved on another place on Earth. And for the atmosphere, it doesn't matter where CO2 is emitted. So in the end, you have a balance again, and it's carbon neutral, and that's how it works actually.
So, is it that companies start with the measurement of the company and then on the product and all the supply chain, or where do they start?
There is no rule, or there is no restriction on that. You can start with your company. You can start with your product. It totally depends on where your preference are as a company, and where you have, or which access to data you actually have. So of course it doesn't make sense to start with the product, for example, where you don't know really much about. So in this case, maybe it's it makes more sense to start with your company. But in the end, you can start with whatever service, whatever company product you want.
Thank you. Muriel, you already mentioned that you have done a lot of effort in measuring the CO2 emissions which are related to your product lines. And you have, since this year, you have the first product line which is carbon neutral, which is CO2 neutral. How did you do that?
Well, in the beginning it was an urge from inside of the company that the product manager of sleeping mats in this case, which is our main range, came up and said, I think we should do that. And then we didn't know how to do it, and we knew there are partners to work with, but we thought we need to find out ourselves what it means, what the products are, and we started to look into our products, which we know by heart, of course. We know every detail of them. And we started to look how many data do we have on these products. And then in the first run, we actually did our own spreadsheet with collecting all this data for these products. And it was a super complicated spreadsheet in the end, and with a lot of data. But we came to a result. And of course, we didn't trust it in the beginning, because it's the first time we did it, and we collected data from different sources like Higg Index or also other open LCA sources. But then we felt we need somebody to actually look into it and prove what we're doing. So we had not ClimatePartner, but My Climate in Switzerland look over our data and to actually how do you say? They validated it, our measurements. And then we went a step further and said we want to do all our categories together with My Climate, because it just feels better to have a competent partner on your side while doing this, because the least thing you want to do is to greenwash your efforts and just say we're doing anything and not being able to have a reliable source. So I'm not sure if this answers your question of how we do it. It's
yeah, and the reason why you choose the product line of mattresses was?
It's our main category. It's more than half of our business is mattresses. So we could have started with the company. As you said, it would have been much easier, really, to count all the emissions from our company. But we already knew that our main footprint was in the product. So we said if we go into this process, we want to have an impact and to have a learning. And so we chose the biggest category, which we have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's most of our brands here. The most emissions are related to the product production and the supply chains, and not that much the headquarter, which is somewhere in Zurich or in Vienna also. Moritz, you always have the view of the consumer. What is your impression? Does consumers asking for this kind of question? Do they value that brands doing the effort in supporting this kind of data and measurements?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tricky. I think it's really tricky. There's so many labels out there that many people, if they don't do their own research, they can see the label, but they don't really know what it stands for. And so what we're trying to do, so on the one hand, we're working with companies, which is one of the points that differentiates us to other NGOs, and help them to communicate their sustainable efforts. But concerning labels, we have our own blog and all different kinds of social media outlets, newsletter, and we're trying to raise awareness across our community, and trying, for example, in blog articles, we're trying to explain what labels stand for what actions. And sometimes there's really a very thin line in between greenwashing and just using one of those labels, especially if you don't know what it stands for. And then there's one more very important point, is that those those labels for sustainability, they're not cheap. So a small company or a startup might not be able to afford that, but is maybe a lot more sustainable than many other companies. And therefore, it's for the consumer, it's really, really difficult to see the differences between different products and to know if is that actually sustainable or is that just one more label.
So does that mean you are helping consumers also to understand, to differentiate between the different labels?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're trying to do via social media, newsletter, blog articles. And as I mentioned before, we're also trying to work with our partners and help them communicate their efforts in sustainability, maybe a skiing resort or a clothing company.
And from a consumer perspective, how else could they, what kind of help could they get from your organization?
Well, I mean, it's not possible to call us and ask for our opinion on that label, but yeah, I suppose if somebody would write us an email actually asking, I would just redirect them to one of our blog articles where we really explain all of those things.
Which is a good info to our audience. Takes the blog article, reads the blog articles. Stefan, you are on the data side helping your partners, your brands in finding their way through the jungle of data. How do they do that? How do you do that? Do you have a concrete example for us, probably out of our industry, how this works? Where do they start?
Yeah, so typically there are 5 steps of climate action. So first step is always, of course, accounting for the corporate carbon footprint. And the second step is for the product carbon footprint. Or of course, like I said, you can also start with the product carbon footprint. Then the third step is to reduce your emissions, so to actually see where you can reduce, what are your hotspots. Then the fourth step is all emissions that can't be reduced, to offset them in international carbon offset projects. And the last step is, and this relates to what you said, so to communicate it. In our case, we're offering to our customers a label that gives the transparency, what is taken into account, and how to get there. So that's the summary of the 5 steps. And to give you some more details on that, how that looks like. So first, when we begin, most of our customers, hadn't started with their own, not like you did. You started by your own. That's not typical for our customers. Most of them haven't started or haven't heard of this topic before. For them, it's completely new. So what we do is we set up a project with them. We help them with the methodology. So all our accounting is related to the greenhouse gas protocol, which is the most, which is the international standard for carbon accounting. We help them to define the system boundaries, so what's taken into account, and so on. We also try to prioritize with which project or product to start, and all this stuff. Then we are on their side when they have questions regarding data collection. We provide a software as a service tool to our customers where they are able to enter their consumption data, for example, on electricity, on heating, and all that stuff. And then in the end, they receive their first carbon balance, maybe of the company or of the product. And then what we do as the next step is to see what are the hotspots on these carbon balance to help our client or our customer to see, okay, where are the most emissions on my carbon footprint at the moment, so where maybe to focus on in the beginning, And of course, we help them taking some very easy steps, like, for example, changing to green electricity, something like that. And then what we also offer in the next steps is that we can work out a climate action strategy together with our companies. Like I said, we offer our customers to become climate neutral by supporting these international carbon offset projects. And in the last step, we also help how to communicate that accordingly.
Thank you, Stefan. So we can ask Moritz whether the label ClimatePartner is providing is something which is known from a consumer perspective.
I mean, in the last years, the ClimatePartner logo has definitely increased on products, on companies' websites. For us at Protect Our Winters, it's always it's difficult, as I said before, to differentiate. So how good is offsetting really? I mean, of course, it's better than nothing, definitely. But I mean, very often that doesn't mean that that's the case for ClimatePartner. But very often, offsetting means that in some part of the world, just some trees are planted, and usually it takes for a tree at least 10 years to offset anything. And then at the same time, who can tell you that this tree is not burning down in the next trees, or cut down for whatever plantation? So yeah, offsetting is definitely a good thing, but there's also definitely better. And the logo, yeah, so the visibility of the logo has definitely increased, and I think it's always better to do something than to do nothing.
Thank you. Muriel, you started after having all your data with creating a roadmap in how to go forward with this data, and also looked into areas where you could save, where you could reduce. What have been the biggest challenges in that?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Well, the biggest challenges, I think I'll come to that. I would like to first say the measurement itself is just such a huge learning about the product and about where the actual emissions lie, that this is such a benefit that I encourage everyone to do that and to see where lies the potential to reduce anything. So when you measure, and this is the big work, then you gain so much that offsetting afterwards is just easy. I mean, it's only money, but the work that went into it and the learning is so much more valuable that I really encourage everyone to do it. And then you tackle just one step at a time. I mean, we started with using recycled polyester for the face fabric, but we still know that inside there's a TPU film which is not recycled yet, and we know the insulation is not recycled yet. So we still know there's a long way to go, and another big chunk of emission lies in the production process, and we were not aware that actually about half of the emission come from the production process, from the weaving and the spinning and the welding and all those processes which are made, in our case, in Asia, and which do not use the all renewable energy yet. And so this is definitely a place to tackle. And I think this is the biggest challenge, to help the suppliers decarbonize their own energy supplies. That is probably the biggest challenge for us at the moment.
So this means looking into data, start to measure is also a learning process internally. And it's a base to communicate inside your company between product management, designers, sourcing people, and so on. And it is the start of a roadmap for the future.
Absolutely. It's just when you see it out there, it's just obvious where you can start tackling. I mean,
and it's also the possibility to see what are the low-hanging fruits, and what are the areas which are more difficult.
exactly.
Okay. Moritz, you started 2007, which is already a while ago, 15 years ago. Kids are at school by now. What kind of success do you see in your organization during the years? World changed in 15 years. Is there more awareness? Where do you see the success where you could help with your organization?
Yeah. Like I said before, so Protect Our Winters US was founded in 2007, and in Austria it took until 2014. So we haven't been around for quite as long, but also have been a few years. The awareness definitely increased, definitely. And as I said before, we're working with partners from the industry, especially the mountain sports industry, and then especially winter sports. I suppose you can figure from the name Protect Our Winters. Just so much has happened. I mean, EXPED is just one example, and there's so many more companies that are actually rethinking their whole business model, and they're just realizing that if they don't do something, they're not going to be here anymore in 20, 30, or 50 years. So especially the winter sports companies, but it's not only them who are affected of climate change, of course. A lot has happened since then. And for us as an organization, since 2007, we've grown just so much. I mean, now we are present in 14 countries in the world, 9 of them in Europe. For example, just last year, we in Austria, we initiated an open letter from the outdoor sports industry towards the government, and we asked for a more ambitious climate protection law. Like the climate protection law in Austria ran out in 2020, and we still don't have a new one. And more than 300 companies from the outdoor sports industry signed an open letter asking for at least for a reduction of emissions of at least 65% until 2030. And that's huge, in my opinion. Like usually it's politics who kind of take the first step, or used to be a few decades ago. But now the mountain sports industry and the industry in general have the chance to take this role as a role model and actually influence politics to be more ambitious. And I think that's a huge change.
You mentioned 2030. I've seen on your website yet also you as an organization have a strategy paper for 2030. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I mean, it's not really a strategy paper for 2030. It was more our 2 last campaigns on an Austrian level and also on a European level, where the one campaign on the European level actually started last, when was it? Late 2020. And that was before the European Parliament and the European Commission decided on of decreasing the emissions of 55% until 2030. And our ask back then was 65% as well. And together with the Climate Action Network, the European one, we actually tried together with our athletes and many of our partners and companies to kind of pressure politics to be more ambitious.
So pressure politics. The next question would be, what hinders us as an industry, what limits us to be more, to give more pressure into that topic?
Well, I mean, I think nothing really hinders us. The industry is maybe a lot more powerful than many of us think, and we can, if the big question is just, can the whole industry kind of hold together in going against politics or asking for more ambitious laws? But in the end, I don't think it's fair to the customers to kind of give away the Verantwortung. Oh yeah, the responsibility. Thanks. The responsibility to the customer in selling products that where you as a customer can choose to take the more expensive sustainable product or take the cheaper version. So in that case, politics really has to set some ground rules, and yeah, there's, in my opinion, there's just no other way. So the industry can take or have a lot of influence, but politics have to cooperate, and they kind of have to set the ground rules.
Thank you. Yeah, it's again pretty obvious that these are questions we can only work together on. So it's something where the quality of the network, the quality of the collaboration is part of the success. Stefan, from your perspective, where do you see limitations in pushing these topics forward, measuring, offsetting, reducing, for example? Where do you see limits in reducing in your work with the brands?
Yeah, I think what we see all the time at our customer, of course, it's reducing the Scope 3 emissions. So getting access to your supply chain, working with your suppliers, especially in textile industry, the supply chain is very long. I think everyone here knows this. So it's really hard to get to that point where you are really able to account a carbon footprint from the cradle to grave with primary data. I think at the moment that's maybe it's possible for some very special brands, but not for normal brands and normal customers. So therefore, this is the biggest challenge we are facing. What we at ClimatePartner try to do here to solve that issue is we are working on a Scope 3 platform.
What does Scope 3 mean?
Scope 3, yeah, sorry for that. It's the greenhouse gas protocol divides the emissions in 3 scopes. Scope 1 are the direct emissions related to your company, for example, the emissions from heating processes or from your vehicle fleet. Then
in the headquarter.
In the headquarter, exactly. Then Scope 2 emissions are the purchased energy, so mainly the purchased electricity. And then Scope 3 are all the upstream and downstream emissions that are related to your company and to your company activities. So when we are talking about products which are part of your complete company footprint, then it's the most challenge to get to that data, so to account completely with primary data, so knowing for every tier what is the energy consumption of your supplier. At the moment that's not possible, and like I said, with our Scope 3 platform we try to give our customers the chance to engage their suppliers actually, so to ask for more primary data from their suppliers, and by that increasing the data quality of your footprint every day or every year at least, and getting a more precise carbon footprint, and also knowing better and better where actually is your hotspot and what next steps you can do to reduce your offset. But because something I wanted to add here, I totally agree with you, Moritz, that of course only offsetting your emissions can't be the solution. It's definitely not possible. And that's why in every project we are doing with our customers, and like I said, it's also reduction is one of the 5 steps at climate action. So we definitely have to reduce our carbon footprint, but by offsetting your emissions right now, you can take action right now and not wait until, I don't know, 2040 or something like that, till it's technically possible to produce a product without any emissions. And that's something I also want to add here. By supporting these carbon offset projects, you really gain effort, because you're supporting people in mainly really bad developed countries. You help you help carbon sinks like the rainforest to survive actually, and therefore it's really good to also to have offset as one part of your climate action strategy, but only as one part, and reduction definitely needs to be the most important part.
People often ask, why should we offset somewhere far away? Why don't we work here, let's say in Europe, if our headquarters here in Europe?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we get that question from our customers almost every day. The problem is, there are very strict requirements what can actually be a carbon offset project, which is actually quite good, because it means that not everyone who's planting a tree or who is installing a solar panel can say, okay, now I have my own carbon offset project and now I fund some money for that. For example, why it's not possible here in Germany, it's strict. Germany already has a carbon balance, and into this carbon balance there is taken into account that some afforestation will take place. And now, if now a private person or a company plant new trees, this is already part of this carbon balance of Germany actually. So therefore it's not possible. That's the reason, and some other reasons why carbon offset projects are mainly in less developed countries. What we offer here, or what we offer at ClimatePartner, are some projects where you can combine both. So you're getting carbon neutral by offsetting your emissions in an official carbon offset project, but I think everyone here agrees that also the forests in Germany need support, and therefore we have some afforestation projects here as well, but they don't create carbon credits, so it's just an additional project and not a carbon offset project by itself.
So it doesn't create official data, but it's still a help.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Muriel, limitations. What really a concrete limitation have you seen in your in getting data from your supply chain? Is it something where you have an example for us?
It really depends on the factories you work with, and some are really advanced and they know all their data and they measure already their data, and then it's easy to get the energy consumption, for example, and they know the share of your brand in your factory and all of these numbers that you need. But some just don't do it and they don't measure it yet, and be it because their electricity comes from their own generator and they could only tell you how much fuel they burn or something like that. But there's limitations from the side of the factory and also from the supply chain. As you said, it's really complex in the textile industry, and a lot of steps in between need to be accounted for. And there, it's really good to work with experienced partners or with data available from the industry, be this from Higindex or from MyClimate in our case, where general data can be used for this missing piece of puzzle. And then it's maybe not a limitation. It can be a limitation because you don't have the accurate number, but you can still do the whole calculation if you have, even if you have some missing puzzle pieces. And I think in these generic data, they include some safety in order not to under-measure or underestimate the actual emissions. So I do also see the limitation in the compensation topic in itself. I see this is not the only way. I agree with you completely. On the other hand, it's something you do now, and we should never think of one or the other. It should always go both, and the more we can do now, the more time we actually save in order to get things right. Because as you already said in the beginning, time's up, and we need to be there very soon. And so that, in my opinion, this is not, it's not a question of not doing offsetting. We really should just do anything we can. And funnily, in Switzerland, we actually could buy carbon credits for certain projects, which are not part of the governmental plan. But we decided against it because we think Switzerland can become carbon neutral themselves. They have the money and all the company and people, and we rather support in some other countries in order to also get towards the climate justice topic that we think is same as important. And because those partners, those certified projects, they also represent the, or they work together with the UN sustainability goals. And yeah, I think it's better to do it somewhere where the money is really missing for doing those steps. Yeah.
What would you recommend a brand who would like to start this journey, which you started?
I would recommend not to think about it, but just do it and just start. I mean, you will see, you will find easy spots. You will find difficult spots, but don't be intimidated by them, because, or work with partners that help you, because they have experience with those problems. Not all data is available from supplier side, so don't let this stop you.
Okay, the same question to Stefan. What would you recommend somebody who would like to start, whether it's a brand, whether it's a supplier?
First of all, I totally agree to Muriel, because it's definitely better to start than to do nothing. What we recommend, yes, start as simple as possible. So focus on the on the product. You have the most data available. Start with your company side, because where it's easy to gather data. Don't be afraid if there are some data gaps, if you have there's missing some data. That's what we come in place. We have this experience. We are able to fill these data gaps in the beginning with maybe with some assumption and stuff like that from other reference projects, and it's definitely, and then you will see that the data quality will getting better and better from year to year, and so it's, yeah, it shouldn't. It's no excuse not to start, not knowing maybe everything in the beginning. So yeah.
Okay, so the last question to Moritz, your recommendation from your view as an NGO, a consumer perspective?
Yeah. First, I just wanted to get back to the limitations again, because I forgot at least to me, a very important point, which is, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think the way capitalism works right now is possible at the same time with a sustainable world. So in my opinion, we have to rethink the whole economy, and circularity might be a solution. Doesn't have to be, but it definitely is our best shot right now. But yeah, and this is super difficult for most companies because because they're just built on capitalism, and we don't know how else we could do it, but it's time to figure it out. The solution from our side, or not solution, but our tips to our community is only really buy what you really want, what you really need. And if you go to a store and see something, then just ask yourself again, do I really need this? We're living in such a quick world, and fast fashion is everywhere and is still growing, and there's no need to get new stuff for every season. I just read recently, I think 2 days ago, that the average T-shirt is worn not even 5 times, and that blasted my brain. Like 5 times? This is insane. The things I wear, I usually wear for several years and at least 50 times, if not more, until they're not wearable anymore. So do I really need this? If I get something, you can always try into the option of second-hand. And then if you actually really need something new, and I know there's some products where you actually need something new, I do too, then try to look at quality labels, and before you just see, okay, cool, this has a label, try to see what this label actually stands for. And rent is another great option. Renting equipment, especially if you don't need it for too long, renting is always an interesting option, especially in the sports industry. If you go skiing for only 1 week a year, renting is definitely the most sustainable option.
And repair, so we stay with the big R's. Reducing, repairing, renting. Thanks a lot. We have a few minutes left, and we are open for questions from your end. And Charles had the pleasure to collect questions from the audience.
It's your opportunity to get into the brains of the people who are changing the thinking. What they have magnificently done is illustrated that we're almost an inward-looking industry, and we pay far too much attention to what we do individually, but the message which goes out to our customer base is a very valid one. And all three, in your own way, are leading the thinking. So now's your opportunity. I've got David, who I will come to for the first question. And I've got 2 questions.
Yeah, well, it's not really a question, it's a consideration, or 2 of them. So I've heard talking about, obviously, clean energy, which is great, obviously, you know. So I'm an environmentalist, so I really believe. I don't even own a car. I have a 3 driving license. I live on my bike. But clean energy today is a really weird topic to me, because it is, say, like electric cars, you know. Apparently 80% of the energy that goes into electric cars is basically made by carbon rather than windmills or something. So to me, it's almost like an oxymoron, right? So you got basically, you burn carbon to produce energy that later goes in a cool car that, you know, it doesn't produce CO2, but still, you know, the whole process, there was this. And then planting trees, I've heard also earlier. I know that obviously it takes 10 years, it takes long for trees to grow and be efficient on the carbon neutrality. But there's a company, for instance, in Canada, it's called Tentry. So I love this company, it's a young company, it's 10 years old. They were born as a tree planter first, and they set up a company to verify basically those tree planted. And then they created a business on a parallel basically line to support their basically causes. So those plants are certified, they have basically a whole program. So to me, even though it can happen that obviously there's fires during summer and stuff like that, but I see this really positive, because at least, you know, if you are planting trees, you're not putting concrete or, you know, parking lots or something like that. So yeah, that was it. It's not really a question, it's just, thank you.
Don't worry, David.
Thank you.
For those people who don't know Tentry, I think it's Bradshaw Taylor who bring them into Europe. But I've got a proper question behind David.
Hi. I was just interested to know a bit more about the model of your company and how people are working and what is the balance inside your company as well, because the way everything is sustainable and trying to push people, do you also have this kind of similar model inside your company, like a flat hierarchy kind of thing, or is this?
They're 3 different companies.
Huh?
So
It's for each company, like as a main. Does that apply also to the way your workers are employed, or is it just about the product? That was my question more.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one of those, you talk really good, but how do you operate? How is the practice? So, Anna, who would you like to direct the question towards?
Whoever likes.
Maybe then I start. So how we work? We have a team. Our headquarters here in Munich, but we are growing very fast. I think since 2 years we opened 8 new offices around the world. Since last year we've been in the USA as well, and we opened our office in Boston. We have several departments. Like I said, I'm in the account management, working together with our customers on all the topic of carbon balancing. But then what is a team that is also growing very fast is our carbon offset team, which actually works together with the project developers. And what we also started creating our own carbon offset project. So here we also have employees now located in India, for example, in South America, so directly in the regions where the carbon offset projects are located. And I think that's it basically, how we are structured, and
Does that answer your question, or is it more like the walk the talk inside?
Anna, could I ask an additional point to the one here? From your board of directors, the people who manage, what's the male-female ratio, just out of interest? Because I like the panel, you've got 2 females, 2 males. Too many things are unbalanced. What's it like in your own setups? Have you got balance at the top?
Well, I would like to start then. Actually, our top management consists of 3 people, and there's an unbalance because it's only 1 female. But throughout the company, we're completely equal balanced throughout all the positions. And maybe coming back to your question, we have a super flat hierarchy in our company, and maybe the best example to explain that is our wage gap inside the company, which is around 10% from top to bottom salary. Of course, this does not include production in Far East. I don't want to greenwash anything. Again, this is within our company in Switzerland.
Thank you. Our company, we have a disbalance because we have more female than male, but if we take the next generation, we are more in a balance. So there are more male kids than female kids in the next generation. And if we are looking forward to the next generation, probably that comes into a balance again and counts.
I mean, we actually don't have any employees at the moment, so we live from our volunteers. But our president is a woman, Verena Stahl. I'm general manager. Vice president used to be a woman. She stepped back half a year ago. Now it's a man. But the 2 other paid positions we have is next to me is another man and another woman. So quite even. Yeah. And maybe about the hierarchy question. We have the office in the US. We have Power Europe as a European organization, the umbrella organization. And
maybe then I at ClimatePartner our board is actually 2 men, because ClimatePartner was founded by 2 men. But in total, I don't have concrete numbers, but I would say that our ratio is more 60% female and 40% male. I would say. especially in the account management in our department. Regarding hierarchy, it's really flat. I think we only have 3 hierarchies, so very, very collegial and no distances between the board and the employees.
Well, that's great, but I'm going to take a really quick question because we've got something kicking off in a couple of minutes.
Hi, I have a question for Muriel. Since, well, we were mainly talking obviously about reducing your carbon footprint here, but there are other ways of making sustainable products. You were already mentioning with your mat project that the outside was made from recycled material. But did you notice during your project focusing on reducing your carbon footprint that it was maybe harder to focus on other ways of being sustainable? Could you combine it, or is that really difficult? Did you have to make, because you were saying like the inside layers were not made from recycled materials. Is that something that if you weren't focusing on reducing your carbon footprint, that you were able to achieve that? Do you think? Or, I mean, my question I think is more, are all those different ways to be making a sustainable project, are they easy to combine, or should you just focus on one?
I think in terms of the products, it's really easy to combine because, as I said, you have this learning and you see where to focus on, and then you just see what can we achieve and can we have this quality of insulation in a recycled form, and we didn't find it yet, but maybe next year. So. No, we really don't want to do any step backwards. For example, we wouldn't buy a non-certified fabric just because it's recycled, but we don't know how much it will pollute the environment otherwise. So we're trying not to do any step backwards. But of course, within a company, you only have so much capacity for a topic or for several topics to focus on. And for example, we have struggled becoming a member of Fairwear Foundation, and because we don't do garment, it was super hard and we didn't manage, and we're still frustrated about it, but then we just focus on something else. And of course, you can't do everything at the same time. And after this, we will tackle the science-based targets, and we will do just one after the other. And it's not a one or the other, it's just one after the other, and whenever you find time. Yeah.
Now, whereas I want to continue listening to them, unfortunately we've got a schedule going on. So can I ask you all to show your appreciation to Anna and her panel, please?
Thank you very much to my panelists, and thank you for the audience. Thanks for your question. We always love your questions, and looking forward to seeing you the next fair.
And more importantly, if you want to have words with any of the panel, they're going to be grouped at the side of the stage for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Pick on them. They're good people.